Good evening. It is Sunday night. It's Sunday night, November 22nd. We are done with Sunday night football, which means it is time to recap the NFL Week 11 on tonight's edition of the Iman Report. Rob Iman here as your host, of course. If you like what you see, give a big like, and of course, please be kind and hit that subscribe button. We are, of course, going to start off with the game that just concluded on Sunday Night Football, but an entertaining game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders come up a bit short, 35-31, and this loss can be squarely blamed on Paul Guenther. How do you leave Travis Kelce that wide open to get the game winner? This one falls on Paul Guenther and his poor scheming. But now what's worse is with the playoff picture for the Raiders, Vegas now sits on the outside looking in at 6-4. So that is the really bad part for Vegas. They move on the outside periphery of the playoff. Derek Carr was good tonight, 23 for 31. But unfortunately, he threw a costly interception to end the game. Josh Jacobs was held in check, but Carr did the job. Mahomes on the other side, 34 for 45, 348 passing yards. And Kansas City in firm position of second place. Kansas City is a lock to make the playoffs. Now, Kansas City would love to see Pittsburgh lose a game here in the next few weeks in order for Kansas City to get that number one seed. That way they could. The downside with the one bye week this year is now this really puts this might put resting starters out of the question as we head into the late season stretch. Now there's only one team that gets a bye. So strategy of resting starters kind of goes out the window a bit for these teams as in terms of seeding. But for Vegas, they no longer, at this point, they don't control their own destiny as in terms of the wildcard picture as they fall out of the playoff race with this loss as of right now. Right now, currently holding the 7 seed is Baltimore, and Baltimore not exactly in great shape. And then the Raiders play Miami and Indianapolis, and those two games will certainly determine the Raiders' playoff fate as we go down the stretch here in the final 6 weeks of the season. But for Vegas, if they get bounced early, I think they have to bring in a new defensive coordinator next year. Paul Guenther is just not cutting it in Vegas. They need to bring in a better defensive coordinator, a better defensive scheme in 2021 if the Raiders just want to be more than just maybe one and done in the playoffs. That is my thoughts on the game. Now on to other games. Let's go to the Thursday night game. The Seattle Seahawks beat the Arizona Cardinals 28-21 in what was a must-win game for Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's got some confidence. Seattle was able to run the football with Carlos Hyde. This was a game Seattle needed in order to keep their hopes at the division title. What's going to help Seattle in the final 6 games is their schedule is relatively easy. Let's take a look at the Seattle schedule here for the final 6 weeks. They get the Eagles. They get New York. Both New York teams. Washington. LA could be the toughest game left on the docket, and then they finish off the season against San Francisco. San Francisco's not going to make the playoffs this year, but I think San Francisco surely wants to play spoiler against their arch rival if that's got division title implications. But there's at least 4 wins, if not 5 wins for Seattle. So the division title could favor Seattle. Arizona, Kyler Murray was good. Kenyon Drake was shut down. If there's one thing Seattle's defense is actually good at, is stopping the run. They're not good at stopping the pass. The bad part for Arizona, their path to their schedule is a bit tougher. Arizona, with this loss, if the season were to end today, Arizona would be the 7 seed. I think the other good part is these 7 teams are pretty much going to be your 7 teams in the playoffs at this point, barring any collapses down the stretch. Arizona plays New England next Sunday. That might actually be an upset there. Cardinals are known not to win on the East Coast a lot, so that could be a potential loss. They play LA. That might be a loss. They get 2 games against LA. They get the Eagles. That's probably a win. San Francisco again. As I said, San Francisco is going to probably want to play spoiler for somebody in December. And then the New York Giants. So there's probably at least 3 wins, maybe 4 wins for the Cardinals out of those 6 games. So I think their maximum is going to be around 11 wins. 10 wins, excuse me. They'll be at best probably 10-6. I'm probably going to say 9-7, but I think Arizona's in. They're going to be, at worst, the 7 seed. They're going to have to play probably Green Bay. But if they want to get further in the playoffs, it's gotta be Kenyon Drake who needs to. Kenyon Drake's got to run the football. If Cardinals defense needs to step it up a bit, but I'm pretty much saying Arizona and Seattle will both be in the playoffs this year. In another battle for playoffs, the Tennessee Titans beat the Baltimore Ravens 30-24. Ryan Tannehill, another amazing comeback by the Titans. They were down 21-13, and then Tennessee comes roaring back, forces overtime, and the Titans win it on a game-winning touchdown by Derrick Henry. Henry, excellent 133 rushing yards against the vaunted Ravens defense. Baltimore, this is a game for Baltimore now where this is very concerning. The loss now puts Baltimore down to the 7 seed. They would have been on the outside looking in if Miami or the Raiders would have won, but as of right now, they're not completely out of the playoff race. But now they fall into 3rd in the division with Pittsburgh coming up. And for the Ravens, there's 4 wins for the Ravens, possibly 4 wins on the docket. Giants, Bengals, Jaguars, and Cowboys. Those are 4 wins for those should be 4 wins there. So I probably got the Ravens around 10-6. That'll probably be good enough to get them in the wild card. But for Baltimore, they've got issues on defense. The injuries on defense are starting to catch up to Baltimore. They haven't looked great as of late. And defenses are really starting to solve the Lamar Jackson picture, and Lamar Jackson has not adjusted to the game. John Harbaugh and Greg Roman need to start dialing up some better game plans for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's got to get better at throwing the football. Today, Lamar was 17 for 29, not good. You got to get maybe more running from J.K. Dobbins. You got to get Mark Andrews involved, get Dez Bryant involved. You get the picture. Lamar is going to have to use his arm if he wants to get. Tennessee, though, this was a game Tennessee needed. This is a game Tennessee got. The bad news is the Colts won. We'll get to them a little later. Next week, the Titans play the Colts. And if they lose this game, pretty much the Titans are going for the wild card. Schedule does not even get any easier after that. They get the Browns a week after. Then the schedule eases up for December a little bit with Jaguars and Lions before playing Green Bay. So that they probably go 3-3. So I think Tennessee is going to be another team that's going to end up 10-6. Defense has to be better for the Titans, though, if they want to be more than just one and done in the playoffs. But you never know. Tennessee got on a run, got hot at the right time last year. It could happen again. But Baltimore is a team that is in bigger trouble. They've got to find a way to get Lamar Jackson out of. Lamar is having the sophomore slump. It's time to put game plans and simplify the game for Lamar Jackson. In Cleveland today, the Browns beat the Eagles 22-17. Another rough game for Carson Wentz, sacked 5 times. And Baker, not great, but good enough. 12 for 22. Nick Chubb, though, was able to run the football all day over the Eagles. The Browns' defense was great in this game. They sacked Carson Wentz 5 times. They picked him off twice. And now Cleveland is sitting at 7-3. And if the season were to end today, they would be the 6th seed. They would play Buffalo. Cleveland's just one of those teams, and Cleveland's maybe 2 wins away from their first winning season in a very long time. I think it's like 2008, 2007 is the last time the Browns have actually had a winning season. So maybe they might go in to the offseason feeling confident for once instead of losing. So we shall find out. But the defense was good today. But on the other side, you've got Philadelphia. You know, Carson Wentz has struggled and struggled all year. He's regressed. Worse and worse as the season's gone on. I really tried to resist saying it until today. I think after today's game, it's time for Philadelphia to really start considering benching Carson Wentz in favor of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is more mobile, so you could get some more run plays out of Jalen Hurts. That could help get some receivers open. But maybe go with Jalen Hurts. And it's not going to hurt for Doug Peterson to go with Jalen Hurts at this point. You just can't keep letting Carson Wentz get hit and throwing interceptions. Carson Wentz and the injuries, I think all of this has frazzled him. I don't think Carson Wentz is a bad quarterback to say, but something is not right with Carson Wentz. He is mentally lost. So maybe you go with, I think it's time for Philadelphia to see what they've got in Jalen Hurts at this point. And honestly, when the season comes to an end, it's time to move on from Jim Schwartz. And I think it's time for Doug Peterson to give up play calling and hire an offensive coordinator. And the schedule's not going to do the Eagles any favors here as we go down the stretch either. Philly is going to play Seattle. Philly's going to play Seattle, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Arizona in their next 4 games. That will probably put them at 3-10-1. Then they play Dallas and Washington. Those should be wins. I don't know if they will be wins. But at this point, Frank Reich, not Frank Reich, God, Doug Peterson needs to hire an offensive coordinator in 2021. He should not be play calling. He should be stripped of play calling duties next year. But Cleveland, you are a playoff team as of today at 7-3. In an upset of the day, the Texans beat the New England Patriots 27-20 and dashes really any hope of New England being a playoff team. The Patriots' defense was bad today. Deshaun Watson, 28 for 37, 344 passing yards. It was the Deshaun Watson show. Brandon Cooks was good today, Jordan Akins. Cam actually was not too terribly bad. 26 for 40. Unfortunately, though, the Patriots were unable to run the football. Damian Harris was not good. James White was not good. Damiere Byrd was the only bright spot on this offense. And then they lose Rex Burkhead to a knee injury. Not exactly the best type of day for New England. At this point, New England's probably going to finish somewhere around 8-8 or 7-9. And I'm leaning towards the Patriots being 7-9 when the season's over. As for Houston, maybe this is a game that gives them a little confidence as they play Detroit down the stretch. In Pittsburgh, the Steelers are a perfect 10-0. And Jacksonville was pretty much shut out. And no, Jake Luton was not good today. Jake Luton was hit twice, throws 4 interceptions, and ends up with a whopping 15.5 passer rating. It was not a good day. Deontay Johnson receives for 111 receiving yards. And Pittsburgh is now a perfect 10-0. Of course, they're going to play a Baltimore team on Thanksgiving that's going to look nothing more than to play spoiler at this point. But after today's game, Jake Luton is not the answer at quarterback for the Steelers. I mean, for the Jaguars. Maybe we'll see if Gardner Minshew will be able to start next week, or do they go with Mike Glennon? I don't think Jake Luton should see the field again. If Gardner Minshew is not able to start next week for the Jaguars, I expect the Jaguars to go with Mike Glennon next week. Glennon's not much of an upgrade over Luton, but he's at least an experienced quarterback. In D.C., the Washington football team beats the Cincinnati Bengals 20-9. The sad part is, for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow gets knocked out with a lower leg injury. which likely ends Joe Burrow's season for this year, for his rookie year. But Burrow does give the Bengals hope for 2021. And losing Burrow is not going to be the worst thing for Cincinnati in a way. They can get a higher pick, start beefing up the terrible defense in Cincinnati, and build on to 2021. That's good, kind of where it can be with Ryan Finley. Looked terrible. Finley had a passer rating of 0. 3 for 10, sacked 4 times. I'm curious to see who the Bengals' third string quarterback is. They do not have a. Looks like they do not have a third string quarterback. So that's likely going to mean the Bengals are going to have to sign a quarterback this week. My best guess is they bring in probably Blake Bortles. They'll probably sign Blake Bortles this week to back up Ryan Finley. As for Washington, Alex Smith, 17 for 25, 166 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Good enough to win the game. First win for Alex Smith since 2018. Antonio Gibson also almost rushes for 100 yards today. Washington not exactly out of the playoff race either at 3-7. In one of the bigger disappointments of today's games, the Carolina Panthers blank the Detroit Lions 20-0. Stafford hit 5 times today. PJ Walker not too terribly bad in his NFL debut. 24 for 34, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Mike Davis, 64 yards rushing. But this was a game where the well-coached team beat the poorly coached team. Matt Rule, a very good coach. Matt Patricia, a very bad coach. Carolina plays for their coach. Detroit does not. For Detroit, I think time is up for Matt Patricia. He's had too many chances. This team's has regressed and gotten worse every year under Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. After week 17, Sheila Ford has to fire Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn. Wholesale changes are needed in Detroit. And even Detroit should start looking for teams to take Matthew Stafford. Detroit needs culture change. They need to hire somebody to come in and change the culture in Detroit in 2021. As time and time again, Matt Patricia has proven he is not the right coach here in Detroit. Matt Rule has a very bright future in Carolina. New Orleans beats up on the Falcons 24-9. Matt Ryan had one of his worst performances as a starting quarterback this season. And the Saints won this game on defense today. Taysom Hill was actually pretty good in his first ever start at quarterback. Taysom Hill ran for 10 carries for 51 yards rushing, 18 for 23, 233 passing yards. The only knock is the 3 sacks. Not too terribly bad for a quarterback making his starting debut. Sean Payton is a wizard. He had a game plan just right to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Nobody talks about the Saints defense. The Saints defense has gotten better week after week. This win combined with the Packers' loss today puts the Saints in the top seed. Saints might be the best team in the NFC. We'll see how long Taysom Hill is able to hold down the fort. Shutting down Matt Ryan is no easy task. They pick off Matt Ryan twice, sack him 8 times. That is excellent defense by the New Orleans Saints, which nobody really talked about today. All the spotlight for the most part was about Taysom Hill. This is how good the Saints defense is. Saints defense is very underrated. Atlanta, you just lost to the best team in football. I think, though, it is a good idea that they're talking about removing the interim tag off of Raheem Morris. This is not going to be the best year to be hiring a coach. This is one of the weaker coaching markets. So maybe sticking with Raheem Morris next year might be the best idea the Falcons can do. And give it one more go with Raheem Morris. We'll see how it works out. In Denver, another upset today. The Denver Broncos beat the Miami Dolphins 20-13. Tua was not good in this start, being sacked 6 times before eventually being mercy pulled for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick was not any better in this game, as Miami got trapped by the altitude of Denver. Fitzpatrick 12 for 18, 117 passing yards, 1 interception. Drew Lock rebounded a bit after the stinker he had in Vegas. Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay were able to run the ball effectively. Gordon with 2 touchdowns. I'm not taking a lot out of this game, but this could be a win that could maybe help towards saving Vic Fangio's job for 2021. But for Miami, I think this is a loss where I can could chalk it up to the altitude of Mile High Stadium. Mile High Stadium's not an easy task for teams that don't play at that altitude all the time, so there's nothing wrong. Trap games happen from time to time, and the Dolphins were just the victim of a trap game today. In LA, the Chargers beat the Jets 34-28. Justin Herbert almost throws for 400 yards today. And in a not-so-Chargers fashion, they actually hold on to the lead this game. As for the New York Jets, congratulations. With the first pick of the 2021 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Trevor Lawrence. Now the question is, will Trevor Lawrence now stay in school now that the Jets have pretty much locked up the number 1 overall pick? With this loss today, the Jets have pretty much sealed their fate. They are going to be the 3rd team since the NFL's gone to 16 games to go 0-16. I don't see the Jets winning any one of these last 6 games. In Indianapolis, Phillip Rivers wins a shootout against Aaron Rodgers 34-28. Jonathan Wilkins being able to run the football effectively. Michael Pittman Jr., the son of former Fresno State Bulldog Michael Pittman Sr., 3 receptions, 66 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. And Phillip Rivers, 24 for 36, 288 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Rivers seeing a career resurgence in Indianapolis. Got to give credit to Frank Reich. Aaron Rodgers was also game, 27 for 38, 311 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Aaron Jones was held in check. Devontae Adams with a touchdown, Robert Tonyan with a touchdown. But Indianapolis came crawling back after Green Bay being up 28-14 at halftime. And a really good, valiant effort out of Phillip Rivers. The Colts hold on to their playoff spot at 7-3. Now, next week, we'll get a rematch with Tennessee. They sweep Tennessee. They are going to be a lock to clinch up the number 4 seed. Clinch up the, maybe not the number 4 seed, but the AFC South title with 6 games to go. And last but not least, Dallas beats Minnesota. And we pretty much have a 4-way tie almost for the division. Andy Dalton, welcome back after coming back from injury. 22 for 32, 203 passing yards. And the Minnesota defense was flat today. Dalvin Cook was good. Kirk Cousins was actually pretty good. 22 for 30, 314 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 140.1 passer ratings. But we finally get Ezekiel Elliott going off for 100 rushing yards. Tony Pollard, 60 rushing yards. Dallas was able to run the ball with ease today. CeeDee Lamb with a touchdown. Dalton Schultz with a touchdown. This is a win that gives Dallas some confidence. Now we have all 4 teams in the NFC least with 3 wins. Who will end up emerging with the NFC East title as we approach the final 6 games here of the season? Thanksgiving all of a sudden just got a lot more important for Dallas as they play the Washington football team with huge implications on Thanksgiving Day. Minnesota, maybe you're just a pretender. This will conclude it for this week. We'll be back Wednesday night before we go to Turkey Day football. And we do have some huge games going into Week 12 with huge playoff implications. Everybody have a good night. I'll talk to you Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.